So after last week with the return of DanMachi, I was excited for this one. I'm pretty much always excited for more DanMachi, but to see that they are already in the dungeon and knowing that the lower floors were going to obviously be a death trap, and having that many characters on screen at any particular moment as you explore the unknown is basically a death flag on every character, probably outside of Bell. But even with that knowledge and with the preview, right, with the kind of like seeing into the future, the dream sequence of like, hey, shit's gonna be bad, we should turn around. Of course they weren't going to. Even with all of that, it's crazy how quick they showed us that something that's probably pretty easy in the grand scheme of where this arc's gonna go. We had multiple moments where a giant fish would come out of the lake and nearly eat a person. And you could argue, sure, okay, I mean, that's just your basic baiting. It's not actually there to try to kill them because, of course, a giant fish won't do so. But when you get to the end of the episode and you meet a familiar face, and it's not even just like you meet a familiar face, they literally lose an arm, they're covered in blood almost head to toe, and the creature that did that to them, Bell isn't able to immediately defeat like you would probably assume, or at the very least the anime's trying to make you feel. Because really, for Bell at this point, he's a completely different character. He is a true leader. He's a level 4. He's in a league of his own. And I think they did a great job with a majority of this episode and last week really showing us that level 4s can do things that no one else really can. And to see how easily he was dealing with things, how people were relying on him, you got a sense of, yeah, it'll be dangerous, and yeah, people might lose a limb, I just wasn't really expecting to see it so soon, but ultimately, things will be relatively okay. And with very good directing, they showed us this beast, had he not moved out of the way because of the warning. Imagine a different scenario, what-if case. Bell didn't come across that familiar face, and then they discovered that beast, first time, no warning. Bell wouldn't have dodged that attack. He would have tried to do his own thing, and in return, he probably would have ended up dead. That is incredible to see, while simultaneously being absolutely terrifying. Because what I think DanMachi is doing really well with, as it stands, is that even when characters get stronger, rather than just simply going with, there's always a stronger opponent for Bell to face, rather, the types of dangers that can happen, like, there's a very good chance that a lot of what Bell might fight this season, he's technically stronger, but they might have a signature move, or they'll do something unexpected and read his own moves that will put him at a disadvantage, not because of just like some typical power scaling, but more so, oh shit, he has a cannon that literally shatters rocks, and if you get hit by it, it turns you into some weird moss-like thing that who knows if you can find a cure. This season of DanMachi isn't playing around. The death flags were already raised last week with the whole premonition. This week definitely ups them. And I can only begin to imagine by episode 6 how many characters will have been wounded, potentially killed, who else knows what's going to happen. Similar to last week though, this was a slower paced episode, but that's not bad in the slightest. I think when you look at the grand scheme of where they're going to go this season, there's going to be stuff that will probably make the Minotaur fight look pretty tame in comparison. And I think given the brief taste we got in this episode of whatever the hell that creature was, these floors aren't playing around. But to see the different sceneries, to see them just building up and being cautious about so many things, and letting Bell flex his leader capabilities, like the fact that he shows them the technique that if you damage the floors, basically after you kill all the enemies around you, then the dungeon will prioritize healing itself before sending more monsters at you. And just to see how so many of them are literally like, holy shit, you're such a genius now. It's like I mentioned in last week's video, you just never quite expected to see Bell get this massive of a boost in character development, and I think what makes it feel so much more warranted is that rather than ending the prior season with him winning his fight, he lost, and that loss promoted such a massive growth both with his skills but also his mentality. He's fine being called a hypocrite, that he'll kill certain monsters to save other monsters in the future. He very much has matured quite a bit, and it's crazy to think the time frame from when Season 1, Episode 1 started to now where Season 4, Episode 2 is. It's actually not that long, but it felt like it's been a massive journey for his character, and he's almost a completely different person than where he started off. And I mean, if you look at a lot of the criticisms in the early parts of DanMachi, I think when you see where he ends up going, it definitely pushes those criticisms right out a window and land right in front of a truck trying to isekai you. This episode was very, very fun. I loved the two different sceneries that we got introduced to. We had this kind of mossy forest, which looked visually stunning. But then what really stole the show for me was the water floor, where you just see these lakes and waterfalls. It was drop dead gorgeous, and it was funny because when I saw just the amount of water, I thought, wouldn't it be kind of hilarious if like the Loch Ness monster popped up and tried to eat someone, and like literally 2 or 3 minutes later after I had that thought, a giant ass fish popped up and not once but twice tried to eat a character. And even though Haruhime wasn't really in danger given the bodyguards and everything like that, it's not to say that that couldn't actually happen with someone not able to save you. Because, like I was saying in my previous video, the thing with this floor is even if Belle could deal with any threat, you have a party, you have a team. If one person trips and falls, that scatters all of them to want to protect that person. And if you completely trust in just one person defending another, if they make one wrong move, then you have 2 people that are about to die. So, the thing with Belle is that he easily could deal with probably a good majority of so many different threats if he has the right knowledge prior to dealing with it. But he has a lot of weaker people behind him. Not to say that they're useless, but there's so many things to micromanage, and it's honestly kind of terrifying to see where they might decide to go, because one might want to argue none of the main cast will end up dead, they might get wounded, they might lose a limb, but no way someone will actually die. And while that could be true, at the same time, we've never been in this much danger given the mission that they're going on. Yes, they're being cautious, but as we literally saw at the end of this episode, if they didn't have that knowledge, all of them probably would have been shot by that and wouldn't have survived. I honestly fully believe that. And given the fact that most of what they'll probably have to deal with in this floor, or the multiple floors that they'll kind of discover and traverse, they're not going to have a wounded friend who will tell you what not to do. So I guess they'll be cautious, but at the same time, I mean, there's no way you start the season with a premonition that shit's gonna go bad and not actually have shit go very, very bad. But that's part of the fun of dungeon crawling in a show like this. And I think given that this show is very much like putting that first and foremost with this season, I've heard that this content that they're adapting is some of a lot of Source Readers' favorites. Seemingly the production is looking rather good. We've had some taste of very high octane speed type moments. So I think we're going to have some fights that are going to rival some of the best that we've seen in DanMachi, with a lot of slower character building moment and progression to tie it all together to be something more than just action like DanMachi has evolved into being. Either way, I am very excited, if not terrified, to see where the characters are going to go from here. The curse thing that's happening to them has me worried. I'm kind of wondering if they're going to have to cut off an arm or, perform some sort of like dungeon surgery to save them before it's too late. Maybe there will be a potion to do it, but even if they all get out of that relatively okay, minus the dude who literally lost his arm, this is episode 2, and that already happened. This ain't going to be a pleasant season for characters having a happy-go-lucky dungeon crawling adventure, but that's why we're here, to watch the chaos unfold. Thoughts down below, leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.